Our next speaker is Merran Smith. And Merran is the Executive Director of Clean Energy Canada, and in that capacity she leads a team that's working to transform Canada's energy systems to reduce fossil fuel dependence and the risk of climate disruption. During her career, Merran has brought together business, government, civil society organizations to create innovative solutions to some of the most challenging issues of our time. And she's recently been named a Fellow of Simon Fraser's Centre for Dialogue. Merran.
The sun. This is our thermonuclear fusion reactor that's been operating reliably without any downtime or outages for the last 4.5 billion years. It's also a symbol of hope, and it's a fitting image for my story of hope, despair, and new optimism about the energy revolution. My story starts here, just north of us in the Great Bear Rainforest. This is where I cut my teeth on activism and where I really learned how deep change happens. Because when I started working here, logging companies, powerful logging companies, had the license to log almost all of these ancient forests. And Aboriginal communities lived here and had the rights and title to the land, but they were largely ignored. And many of us wanted to see these forests protected. But the government was stuck in an age-old model: log to the beach, export the wood, and make lots of money for the companies and for the government. The conflict was so heated, it became known as the war in the woods. And somebody had to go in and meet with those logging companies. And those of us who owned suits were sent in. We negotiated, and we were trying to create, not just tinker around the edges, but we wanted deep change to the status quo. And we did it. We created an agreement that protected an area almost the size of Ireland, changed the forest practices, and ensured that communities were dealt in on the benefits. So it was time for a break. So I got pregnant, and I finally read that stack of books. You know that stack of books that's sitting by the side of your bed? And by the time I gave birth to my twins, I realized that those trees that I had just spent a decade protecting were far from safe, and nor were future generations. So it was time to get back to work. And this time, I wanted to help change Canada to a clean energy economy. So I got a new suit, went to Calgary, the heart of our petroleum sector. I thought I had learned a lot about powerful corporations. And so I went and met with CEOs and executives. I went to industry associations and innovation groups. I went to dialogues and roundtables and square tables, and slowly it dawned on me. These corporations had no interest in changing. They'd shrug. It was their shareholders, the board, the consumers. I got depressed. I hit a wall. Climate change had arrived, meanwhile, much sooner than predicted, and we didn't have anywhere near enough power to make real change to the status quo happen. I was depressed, and I really didn't know what this feeling was like, because my grandmother had been an optimist, and she had taught me about the power of positive thinking. She would create a vision, she would make a collage, and she would stick it on her bathroom mirror, and she would meditate on it every day while she brushed her teeth. And I had seen how she'd made change happen in her life with this. And so I was a believer and used this technique. But on this file, it seemed there was no hope. And then something happened. Unexpected. China declared a war on air pollution and started building out solar and wind at an unprecedented pace. They were putting on, get this, 2 solar panels every second last year, and a windmill, 1 every hour. And this caused the prices to plunge. So the price of a solar PV dropped 83% in just 5 years. And investors could see which way the wind was blowing. Last year, $310 billion was invested in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And this was creating a sea change. My hope was coming back. And then in the West, people started marching in the streets. This was Quebec. Last month, 25,000 people marching for climate action. And there was a tone change that came in governments around the world. China, the United States, Brazil, the Philippines we just heard about. And so I realized I did not need to be depressed that the CEOs in Calgary were not ready to step up, because everyone else was stepping up. And this energy revolution is going to go around the oil sector. Sure, they might come on board someday, but it doesn't matter. And then in Germany, I saw this renewable energy transition all across a country. There was farmers' fields planted with crops, and then windmills planted above them, and solar everywhere, on houses, train stations, schools, office buildings, you name it, everywhere. You know, in Germany, the energy transition, it's not an abstract concept, it's in your face. And that is what I concluded we need here in Canada. We need everyday visible signs of the new energy solutions. And so I wondered, what can we do? Well, how's this? What about putting solar PV on every school across the country, or on city halls, fire halls, community centers, libraries, even Parliament Hill? The kids would talk to their parents, who would talk to the neighbors, and realize that this energy revolution is underway. So I made a collage, like my grandma taught me, and was talking to somebody about this vision just last month. And they offered to match up to $1 million to get this project off the ground. Now, I'm not a naive optimist. I know that's just a drop in the bucket. And the United Nations has said to really create this, to fight catastrophic climate change, we need to triple the amount of clean energy by 2050. But good news, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, said last year that carbon dioxide emissions plateaued in the energy sector, even though the economy grew. And they attributed this to renewable energy and energy efficiency. And so it's working. So what do you think about that kind of ambition? Triple the level of clean energy? I think we can do it. One windmill, one solar panel, one nation at a time. What do you think?